I am so excited to have Alicia with me today. Alicia is one of my private clients. She's been working with me for a while. She's also my good friend and an amazing woman. And I know today that her story is going to inspire so many people because I think sometimes she laughs, but it's not anything to laugh about. She is a very inspiring woman and she has so much to share with so many people. So, welcome, Alicia.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you agreed to come and be here today. I know it's not always easy to be on video, but you and I have done this before, so we have recorded before. But I am excited for you to share your story today because even from when we recorded before, oh my gosh, so many things have changed for you since
Yeah.
then.
Yep.
A lot has changed for you.
A
Oh my
lot, a lot
gosh.
has changed. I think last time we recorded, it was maybe less than a year after Tracy had passed.
I
So,
think so. I think because we had really been working through a lot of grief with you
mhm.
and, you know, dealing with a lot of things from your past relationship. You were realizing a lot of things were missing in your relationship and feeling a little bad about some of those things that's kind of the last time we talked. So I want you, for those people who maybe didn't watch that or don't know what we're talking about, why don't you kind of back up and start before Tracy's passing, because that's when we really started working together, and just kind of share your story a little bit about where you've been, whatever parts you want to share. So
Sure. So, like from when he got sick, or even before then.
whatever sounds good to you. I guess you could go back to when we kind of started working together because we actually started working together even before then. So,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've known you for, well, since high school, and
yeah.
then our husbands worked together, and so we hadn't been in touch. And then our husbands worked together and stuff. My sister actually passed away, and I had seen you at an event with our kids, and you mentioned something about my sister, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah. I was like, okay, that's kind of weird, but whatever. I'm a believer in the afterlife, whatever. Anyway, so my husband and I had been married 22 years. He got sick about 21 years, I think. He ended up with stomach cancer, and then we were working, doing chemo, and it was a long, complicated process of even getting diagnosed. And then I think, I was trying to think of the timeline. I can't even remember. Maybe 4 or 5 months before he passed,
Mhm.
you had been kind of, reaching out to me, and I had been brushing you off. To be honest, I was like, yeah, I don't have time, whatever. Anyway, so I finally started meeting with you, and having sessions, and I think that's a huge part of what helped get me through. Just realizing having to process this. And then he ended up passing away December of 2020. He had a few appointments with you, which brought him a lot of peace.
It did.
And then, you just start navigating that grief and that whole new life. And I had 3 kids, all at home at the time. And so I think just having a friend and to talk to that could help with that. And then the sessions really just kind of, I didn't understand all of it. I didn't understand a lot of your process, how you did things, but I knew it worked. I could definitely, tell the difference. And it, in the middle of all of that, I started a weight loss journey, which I don't even know how that even came to be, but that started,
Mhm.
happening. And then here we are 4 years later. I don't know if you want me to jump to that, but
Yeah, you can
you
totally
know,
jump. Yeah.
yeah. So 4 years later, and I just recently got remarried. And he's a great addition to the household, and the kids love him. And in the middle of, well, I guess 2 years ago, before that, I had back surgery. I had some chronic back pain. Actually, the weird thing is, and I think we talked about this last time, but I woke up on my son's graduation, my youngest son, his graduation morning, with just a backache, and I thought I knew it was stress. I was like, okay, here's a stress back. My baby's graduating without his dad. Yeah, no, we went through all that with the
Yeah.
others, and so I knew what it was. I knew it was stress. But by the end of the night, by graduation night when we got home, I couldn't move. I spent the rest of that summer pretty much bedridden. It would take me, 3 hours just to get from my bed to the shower to get my hair brushed. It was excruciating, and ended up with this surgery July 31st, a failed surgery.
Yeah.
So since August, pretty much of 2023, I've been dealing with this ridiculous back pain that has really impacted everything that I've done, my moods, my health, just everything. Um, Clear up until what, 2 weeks ago?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll try not to get super emotional, but
That's okay. Get emotional. I'm like,
yeah,
that was pretty impressive. That was an impressive
we had a
moment.
yeah, we had a great session. I didn't realize the impact of it. We talked about it. I don't know if I'm going to overshare. Hopefully, I'm not going to
Nope. Do it.
overshare.
You share whatever you feel that you want
Um,
to.
yeah, we had talked about, I had recycled some anger, I would say. I don't know. I thought that I had worked through, recycled some anger towards him for leaving me with 3 kids and a
Just to
farm
clarify,
and
your first
my
husband.
first husband.
Yeah, let's
Sorry,
clarify.
yeah,
We'll
I
just
threw,
clarify that.
yeah, I threw the other one in. We can talk about him later if we need
Yeah.
to. But yeah, so but so back at my, at the loss of him and having to navigate, my daughter's pregnant and just all those things, all those firsts that continue 4 years later. And we kind of worked through that, and you realized, you noticed that there was a bunch of stuff in my back, and at the time I was like, okay, y'all, I didn't think much about it. And I was like, okay, that's kind of big. But the very next day I woke up and my back didn't hurt. I slept all night. In fact, I think I texted you and was like,
Uh-huh.
holy cow, I slept all night long. I haven't slept all night long in 3 years.
Yeah.
Literally, it's been, I mean, between Tracy passing and my back, it's been 3 years. Sleep deprived is not a good way to be.
No.
Anyway, so I, but because, the weekends I would wake up at 9:30, 10 o'clock, barely able to get out of bed because I hadn't slept. I just,
Yeah.
and just trying to live like that is not good. By
No.
the end of the work day, I was just done. I would come home, lay on the couch, take my it was just not living. And so the very next day when I woke up and I realized I had slept all night, I immediately, of course, texted you, and I have slept every night for 2 weeks now.
Yeah.
It's just I knew I had heard people tell stories of, emotional release, blah blah, not blah blah blah. I'm saying that,
No,
but I mean, I had heard it, but I'd never experienced it in that depth. I mean, we've been working on my back off and on for a while, and I would get some relief, and then it would come back, and I just could not, I just couldn't figure it out. I at that point I figured it was all physical, that I had released everything that I needed to. But after that pretty heavy session, that I really didn't realize was heavy at the time until I got home, and I was like, oh, that was big. I have very little back pain, and something that I realized and I kind of heard in my head, if you will, a few days ago was, okay, you've taken care of the emotional part of it. Now you just need to take care of the physical part of it. It's two together. You can't
It
just
is.
you
Mm-mm.
can't just do. But now I have the energy to exercise. I have the energy to walk. I have the will to want to do things, because before I just couldn't. I
Yeah.
just couldn't. I was, white knuckling it through the days. And that's been the case for almost 2 years now, a
Years
year
now.
and a half for sure.
And we've worked
So,
on this on and off, but it seemed
yeah,
like there was this last little lingering piece that once, and anger is a big deal. I don't think people realize how much we think it's such a bad thing, and it's not a bad thing. It's just an emotional reaction to things that were
right.
happening, like things that had happened in your reaction to what was going on, and feeling like you were abandoned and left alone. And and
Well,
realizing the depth of your relationship too, I think was huge in all of this.
right. Well, and I think, I think for whatever reason, we've been taught, of course, you're not supposed to feel angry at people who are
I
gone.
know. Exactly.
I mean, that's just like, and so I kept fighting it. I kept fighting these feelings, like, and then I internalized it, like, why am I mad? Like, I don't have the right to be mad. He's the one that's gone. He's the one that's dead. He died. I'm still here. I don't have the right to be mad. But it's also, when you dig deep, it's that grieving. It really was. Anger is grief. It really was. It's just realizing. And it's one of the things I talked to you about was I felt like I was comparing my two relationships,
Mhm.
my current relationship and being blissfully happy to my other relationship and being happy, but it's completely different men, different kinds of relationships.
Mhm.
And I think I tried to kind of make one of them better than the other instead of just realizing they can be different and it's okay.
And it's okay. Yeah.
So there was
Yeah,
that
there
too.
was nothing there it is hard not to compare. Our minds want to compare that. We want to make it something that it's not.
Yeah,
But, your relationship with your first husband was completely different than the one you're in now.
absolutely.
And they're
Absolutely.
two totally different people. And,
Yeah.
to me, I see it because I've been working with you as because you're a totally different person than you were this
Yeah,
time.
and you would say those things. You would say those things to me, like you're completely different, and I didn't get it. I mean, I'm like, no, I'm the same. I look the same. But I am different. I am.
Uh-huh.
Even my kids,
You don't look the same either. No, there's
yeah,
nothing.
my kids, even just they still are blown away by the chill mom that they didn't grow up with. So I think I am different. I'm now realizing how different I am. And so those relationships came to be when they were right. So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah.
You made a comment and I just want to touch on it because it stood out to me. It was kind of funny when you were talking about how you avoided me for a long time. This is actually a normal thing because our soul knows what we want, but our ego
Yeah,
is scared shitless to step into all of this because we don't understand it and we know that something's not right, but we don't know how to approach it. And so to me, that's a very normal thing to do.
yeah, yeah,
When people ghost me, it's like, okay, I get it. It's their soul's like, just do it, just do it. And their ego's like, oh, hell no. Like, we're not
absolutely.
for that. Everything's fine.
Yeah,
Good.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah,
So
for sure.
yeah. So I just wanted to touch on that because I was like, don't feel bad about any of that. We totally did all
Yeah,
that. Like,
yeah.
so let's talk a little bit about because I don't want people to get the impression that this was like a one and done thing with your
Oh
back.
gosh,
Okay.
no.
Because
Yeah,
this was not a one and done. Like,
yeah,
is it possible to do that? Yes. I never put anything off the table. But
right,
we had been working slowly with this because you work with me a lot on health and wellness. This is kind of what we've been focusing
right,
on. But you've heard me say it a million times, health and wellness is not just about health and wellness. Like if we
right,
only talked about your health and wellness, we would be doing you a huge disservice, obviously, because we can see where this emotional component comes in
right.
with
Yeah.
the physical. So, let's talk about kind of leading up to um, your pretty much your complete transformation here. Like we're still a couple weeks in, but it's pretty freaking phenomenal. So let's talk
Uh,
about kind of leading up to what your version of or how you see it that we led up to this.
well, so as far as the back goes, you mean?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So I would come in, you could see me, I was moving around a lot. I couldn't get comfortable. I couldn't go for drives. I could, all of those things. Sitting was really uncomfortable. And so I think the thing that I didn't realize is that it's layers, right? So you release what you're okay to release and and so I feel like because I would get relief and
Mhm.
then, I didn't realize that this is where I was holding my stress. I can't remember where I used to hold it. I probably used to hold it in food, I mean, when I would eat, I was
Exactly.
definitely an emotional eater. And that feels like that's not the case anymore. It had to go somewhere,
Yep.
and it was really about the shame of the feelings that I was having. Instead of just going, okay, this is how I feel, and I'm just going to say this is how I feel, and this is what it is, I wouldn't accept that. And so to be able to then go, okay, and even just a day to day, sometimes I'll have those. I'll be like, I don't like this, but you know what? It is what it is. This is what
Yeah.
I'm thinking today. This is how it is. And that's made a huge difference to be able to release that stuff and just go, there's nothing wrong with it. What you're feeling, there's nothing wrong.
Yes.
That's the biggest thing because I would be angry or I'd be mad or I would be hurting and I would just go down the rabbit hole of it,
Mm.
and the physical pain too. I would just be like, I'm never going to get better. I'm never going to be able to do this. I'm never going to be able to hike again. I'm not going to, you just go down that rabbit hole. And so as you and I have had sessions and done things and done work, I realized that that doesn't have to be true.
No.
And but I think maybe I needed to have a big physical response to really believe that. And so to have this, because now I'm waking up at 7 o'clock ready to go. That's 2.5 hours before I could ever open my eyes. I mean, I would fight my alarm to go to work,
Yep.
and just be exhausted. I would literally go to work with my hair pulled back in a ponytail, not a stitch of makeup on, and teach the whole day long, feeling like crap,
Yep.
And so now I'm waking up at 7 and I'm like, oh, let's go, and I just didn't realize how much pain was impacting and really how much my thoughts were impacting my pain, really.
Yeah. I think
I mean, that's just huge. And even just letting go of a lot of control because I've tried to control my kids and I try, all of these things and just letting that go and just letting everybody have their own, I don't know, I mean, experience, I guess, in the
uh-huh.
world. I mean, it's just not for me to dictate.
Yeah. Well, and some of your kids have struggled more than
Oh,
others.
yeah.
And so
Yeah,
that's been hard to watch. Like, and as a
absolutely.
mom, we want to fix it and we want to make it better. And
Yeah.
I think for you now, you're kind of realizing that you can't do that for them. Like,
Right. And it will continue to be hard.
yes.
But I also realize, yeah, I can't do that for them. I'm
And
there for them if they want to take advantage of me. But if they don't, I can't force them to do that.
no.
It's a weird dynamic to be a mom for sure.
I think it is too. I was just talking to another lady this morning who's at that 18 stage where they turn
Yeah.
18 and they're not out of the house yet. They're still, it's like we're trying to navigate all of that and
Yeah.
be okay to not be okay. And it's a
Right.
real crappy place to be.
Yeah,
So,
it is. And it's an ongoing, it's not just, and that's the thing, like you said, it's not just one and done, it's
no.
not, it's always something that you always have to keep up on, whether it's a daily little video or a daily little journal or whatever it is. I mean, it really does have to be part of your daily practice.
It should be absolutely a daily practice in what we do. So,
Yeah.
one of the things that we talked about in one of your sessions was the fact that before we figured all this out, you were kind of sabotaging your current relationship I hope it's
Yeah.
okay to use that word,
Sure.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
but let's go back to that a little bit because that really led up to that was kind of the opening spot, I think, for this big release, because when we started realizing that, you were afraid to lose this relationship too, and how can it be this good and this one not be that good, and comparing and thinking and making the stories up about what it was supposed to be or what it wasn't and what it should be, or let's talk a little bit about that, about your experience with that.
Well, I think, I after my husband passed, I literally at the 1 year mark, I was like, okay, I'm going to get back out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not a wise idea. It was way too soon. I mean, it was just way too soon. So I pushed, and forced a lot of things. But luckily, I found this great guy, but I had which I didn't realize. Again,
Mm-hmm.
I realized it, but I need to. This is one thing that I want to work on is like listening to when I hear things. I need to listen, right? Like I
Gotcha.
hear things or I think things, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
put it away. So, but yeah, I was kind of sabotaging. I was just like, this is not the way I pictured it. This is not, going the way I thought it was going to go. Again, control, right? Control. And
Mm-hmm.
then, I realized a huge part of my problem and being able to commit fully or, just give it a real go was like, I'm not doing this again. I'm not losing another husband.
Yep.
And so if I don't get involved with the right person, I mean, I had been involved with the wrong person.
Hmm.
So the right person comes along, that I didn't recognize. I recognized the bad stuff because that's what I thought I was worthy of,
Yeah,
right? But
exactly.
then, yeah, so I mean, get through that. And then when I realized this is a great person and a great guy for my kids, I started, you
You
know,
got scared.
I
You got
got scared. I
scared.
pulled back and I was just like, I'm not, because one of us is going to leave the other one if
Yeah.
I commit to this at some point, and I just didn't want to go through that again. I just didn't want to. And I didn't consciously realize that that's what I was doing.
Uh-huh.
Um, I can see it now, after
Yeah.
the
And
fact.
looking back, do you think the anger that you were carrying and the grief from the previous relationship played a role in what was going on in this situation right now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure, for sure. And I just because there's no way I was, and I don't know, I don't know how. Yes, it did. I'm trying to connect the dots here in my brain. Um, I think that played a part in it, but I think the bigger part of it for me was the self-worth. Like,
Yeah. Hmm.
I don't know why that was why my self-worth has been so bad that I thought I didn't deserve to. And we talked about this many times.
We
Like,
have
I've
talked
had my
about it.
one shot. I've had my one shot. I don't get it again,
Yeah.
you know. And I was never a believer in there's one person for every single person. Like I believe you can find love more than once, but I just thought I had my great thing, and why did I get to deserve it twice,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yep.
and maybe that was some anger, but I felt like too good to be true, and so or I don't want to lose another person, so I'm
That's
just not
what
going to
it,
commit.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, we don't want to lose another one. And I think
yeah,
that's where the grief blocked you right there was like, nope,
yes,
this hurts too bad. I don't
yep,
want to do it. I'm not going to do it. So I'll push him away. Um,
yeah.
although he wasn't willing to be pushed away, which is,
No, thank goodness for that. Yeah,
yeah, he's like, okay, I get it. We got some
yeah,
things we're going to work through. So,
yeah.
yeah. Um, let's see. So talk to me a little bit about, let's talk about the difference in your relationship now because of because I believe it has a lot to do with you doing your healing work and working on your wounds and your traumas, and it's allowed you to be in a completely, now here again, we're not comparing,
Right,
but it's just a completely different situation. Neither one is good or bad, it just is very different relationship.
right.
So let's talk a little bit, whatever you want to share on that part of it of.
So from a me perspective, I don't want anybody to get the misconception
No.
that I wasn't happy. I was totally happy,
Yep.
completely 100%, had a great life. Um, but I wasn't happy with myself.
Yep.
And I was very overweight. I mean, but that was just a symptom of me not feeling
Yep.
good about myself. I was involved in a fatal car accident when I was 16. So I had a huge amount of survivor's guilt. I
Mhm.
felt I just felt lucky for the life that I have. I didn't realize that I worked dang hard for the life that I had. I can see that now, and so I just there was an underlying, we had a great life and there were happy times, but there was an underlying unhappiness within me,
Yes.
that just couldn't accept my life and accept the happiness. And I don't want anybody like I don't it doesn't I don't want to make it sound like I was miserable. We had a great life.
No,
We had
you
great
guys
kids. We had
had,
all
I've
those
known
things.
you. Yeah, I've known you for
Yeah,
a
I
long time. You
mean,
and Tracy had a great life.
by all appearances, it was a great life.
Mm,
It wasn't good for me. I wasn't great.
yes.
Like I was just so unhappy. And um
And that's where a
we're
lot of the guilt came in too, because
that because now I'm not unhappy.
mhm,
Now I'm
yes.
more accepting of myself and less hard on myself. And so it almost it's like I was talking to my husband about this and I said, you're kind of the same person. Your personality is the same, I'm sure, with your late wife as it is with me. And you and I talked about this.
Yes.
I am not the same person.
No.
I don't even talk the same. I don't even say the same words that I used to say. It's just bizarre to me. So the two relationships are so black and white. They're so completely different that that comparison that you can't help but do when you realize that you're going to commit to somebody for the rest of your life. I it threw me, and I think that's what triggered this whole being able to let go of it. Was I was like, oh, I misinterpreted my marriage now as I'm so much happier.
Yeah.
And it's not about being happier in this relationship. It's about being happier with myself.
Oh, yep.
That's the whole difference, because I had a great life, great husband,
Yep.
and now I have another one. It's me that's different.
Yep.
It's me that's different. And so I was able to realize that it's okay to be happy twice.
And I love that you are so open to see that now, because it took a little while to get there.
It took it took a while. It did. It took some mistakes.
Yeah.
We'll just say that.
I wouldn't even call them mistakes. It was just some bumps along the road.
Yes. That's a better, yeah.
But you know what? There's nothing easy about any of this. None of this has been easy to navigate. Like, none of it has been, it's not like you get a playbook that says, okay, if this happens, take road B, do road C. Like,
absolutely. And it seems like some people just get it faster than I do. And I just, but I think I'm getting it. I think I'm getting it.
I think you are too. I think
the biggest thing that I've noticed with me is just not trying to control everything. Because that's
so much freedom in that when we
absolutely
let go. Oh my gosh.
And even just within my own brain, my own mind, not the external stuff that I was trying to control, but just like all of my thoughts. Don't think that, don't think that, don't think that, And now I'm just like, okay, it is what it is. It's coming anyway.
Yeah.
I'm thinking it anyway. So I'm just going to allow it to process, and it goes away faster.
Yeah.
That's the thing that I've noticed, is that
I love that you can do that, because it just makes things so much easier. Like, we fight so many things in our lives, and sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, stop with the fighting. Like, it's fine.
That's the biggest lesson I've learned. Stop with the fighting. Just allow yourself to feel whatever.
Yeah.
I talk to my kids. Yeah, I talk to my kids all the time, and my daughter's going through a certain particular thing right now, and I was like, just let it. You're gonna feel it anyway. Don't sit there and beat yourself up about feeling it. Just feel it and be done.
What a gift to your kids now, because I remember when right before Tracy passed away, and I remember the day of his funeral, his viewing, and I was talking to your kids, and we were all setting out because I love your kids, like, we were all setting out in the funeral home or whatever, out in the little entryway or whatever out there. And I said, one of your kids mentioned something about, to me, they said, we're so glad that you're here because our mom is totally different. That's what they said, something on those lines of, like, I don't remember how they totally said it, but it was like, oh my gosh, we're so glad, because the old version of her would not be handling this like she is today. And I thought, what a gift to have your kids say something like that about you, and for them to see it and understand it and know that you're in a very different place, handling things very different. So what a gift.
Well, and I think it's really been amazing, because I was really worried about new husband coming in, and just I was really worried about what it would do to the kids. And every single, well, I made it sound like I had 100 kids. All 3 of my kids we just want you to be happy. That blew me away. I thought there would be more of a like, no, that's not fair to our dad, or something. I expected a little more pushback, I guess, but they were all very good. And some of that's credit to the new husband, and some of it is just that I think that I've done a lot of work, and they could see that it's, I don't know, it's a trickle down. It affects you work on yourself, and it affects your kids. It affects everybody around you, not just your kids.
Yeah, it really does. It's not just about us, it's about everybody and everything. All of our connections. It makes such a difference.
Yes, for sure.
So I have one more question for you. If you had any advice to give to someone who's going through what you have been through, what would you tell somebody?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
It is.
I, mm, I guess I think I would just recommend not fighting it. Just don't fight everything. Just allow time. I fought so much from grief to controlling when I was going to start dating to how everything was going to go, what I wanted it to look like, and it just got in my way. That would be just allow yourself to feel what you feel everything, and then just don't fight. If you feel something, just don't fight it. I don't know if that's great advice, but I think
I
it's
think it
just
is.
allow everything and it will work out. And I hate when people say that. I
I
hate it
know.
when people say that. It'll all work out. But the truth is, if you just let it flow and just, yeah, it will. Open yourself up.
There you go. I
That's
think
it.
it's beautiful advice because honestly, when we get out of the way, that's when we can get the help and the support and the things that we need. It's us in the way preventing
Absolutely.
these things
Oh,
from working themselves out. We don't think so. We think we're like the ringleader in there, like directing traffic, doing all the things, but you know, they don't need us. The universe doesn't need us. Like they're like, if you would just move over, we could do it the right way. Like, oh,
yes, I think that's definitely true. And I just would say if you have, it's not that everything is, butterflies and rainbows, but if you can just, if you have a negative thought of something that you shouldn't be doing or can't do or doesn't work for you, that's not true. It's just
exactly.
not. You're fighting. That's your what Gina calls your ego, and it's a true thing. It will take you down the rabbit hole, and if you just acknowledge it, that's my biggest lesson. I think is just acknowledge what you feel and don't fight it and let it work its way through.
But we're
Because
gonna
you get
have
hung up on it. I've seen my
absolutely.
daughter get hung up on stuff for months because she's fighting it. She shouldn't feel a certain way, and I've done it too.
Mhm.
Um, Now I try and make a conscious effort not to do that, but we're not perfect, and I don't think
No.
your healing is ever done.
Well, and we're in this, we're still having a human experience, which means we're having human emotions, which means we're gonna have the thoughts and the feelings and all the things.
And
So
I think that's something that I didn't understand either. I thought that when you were healing, and I just thought it was all just positive, and like, no, it's so not. You're still normal. You're
yeah.
absolutely, you're up and you're down, and you go down the rabbit hole, and then you're, flying high and doing great. And then, something happens and it knocks you off. And it's just about letting it knock you off, but you don't stay there. I
Yeah.
don't. I don't know.
I it's
I'm not great with words. I just know that you just have to just let it flow.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
Well,
just,
let's end with what's coming up for you because I know you have lots of changes. So maybe you don't want to share some of them, but um not yet anyway, but you've got
oh,
lots of fun things coming up and um
life is good.
I
Life
know
is
life
good.
is good. Like
Yep.
you've been doing lots of traveling these days and
Lots of traveling. Yep. Getting a new grandbaby in July. First grandbaby.
you and I have that in common. We're gonna be first
Yeah.
time grandmas this year. Mine won't be
Yes.
until late fall, but yours will be here pretty soon. So
Yes. It's
um
weird. It's weird to think of being a new grandma and a new wife at the same time.
that
It's
is
so
kind of
weird.
weird. That is a so many
Yeah.
new
Yeah.
things going on in your life.
Yeah. So we're just trying to live life and have some fun.
Yeah. Well, good. Good,
Yeah.
good. Well, I appreciate you being here today. Thank you so
Sure.
much for sharing. And I know that this will help so many people. I know
I
it's
hope
hard
so.
sometimes to share our stories because we think, oh my gosh, mine's just this. But our stories inspire other people, and especially when they can see how far you've come. I've seen you make great strides in the last 4.5 years. From the person that I first got reacquainted with after many years of not seeing each other, and
Yep.
then to who you are today is very different. So I see that in you and acknowledge the healing work that you have done because it's not just me. This is a group effort for sure. This is
Well, yeah,
you've
and
got to do your part for sure.
yes, of course it is, but I think, and this is something that you're very humble about, but you have the ability to pull thoughts from people's head. And like I just have been, there's things that I say or that I think to myself, and I it's just part of, and you'll pull it out literally word for word out of my head, and then I'm like, oh, that's why I kept repeating it. It was hung up there. It needed to come out, so I don't, I appreciate all of your help and all of your willingness
Of
to deal with
course.
me.
Of course. No, of course. And I just want to acknowledge that it is definitely both sides of everything that's going on. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So, well, I appreciate you being here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And yes, so I will let you go. And thank you all for listening today. I hope you have a fabulous afternoon, and we'll see you next time. So much love.